Let's get going. I am super excited about our guest in this episode today. But first, let me please welcome my amazing, incredible, talented co-host, Mr. Benjamin Farrell. Ben, are you out there with us today?
Absolutely. Yes, Don Lego. And I'm fired up for this segment. I am, of course, focused on fundraising, and I'm fired up to share. Raise is lifting off with each passing moment, every new session. People are getting more excited, making those connections. And what a better way to spend your day than with a nationwide group of fundraisers. So I'm ready to get started.
Well, without further ado, do you know who we have as a guest today? Our amazing keynote. She just rocked Raise this morning. She brought the house down. The digital communication world is blowing up right now. We have the one and only Pam Sherman. Pam, you're here. How exciting. We're so happy to have you.
Actually in person, in a room with Don Lego.
Yeah.
Who's Don Lego?
Yeah, who's Don Lego, right?
Lego. No, not who's Don Lego, but she's always known as Don Lego.
That's right. I'm on
Nice
the three-syllable name. How was your session this morning, Pam? Did you have a good time?
I'm so energized. And what was so exciting was an interactive keynote is what I always want. And I want people to have tools and takeaways that are meaningful, not just listening to somebody. And for me, I was just so inspired by the chat. People were sharing their core defining words, their core values, and their vision of a fearless future in what I started talking about, a VUCA world. We're living in a volatile, uncertain, chaotic, and ambiguous world. And my theory is that's the way fundraisers live. They live their lives always in a VUCA world. So it was no surprise that when the pandemic hit, fundraisers were able to really tap into their energy, their grit, and their resilience and raise more money than ever before because of even greater need.
And you have some stories about that, don't you, personally?
Yeah, it's.
Right? Let's first learn a little bit about you.
Oh, okay.
Because we all know and love you, but there's a whole international community of Raise Nation out there, and we want them to know you a little bit better. So let's hear a little bit about your story. I love the recovering attorney. That's hilarious.
Yes. I'm a multi-hyphenate who, by the way, can't sing and dance. But my core defining word is energy. And I found my passion in helping leaders present themselves and their stories around the world. After I left the practice of law as an attorney, I thought I'd gone into a secure profession. I'd always had a dream of being an actor. And in a recession a long time ago and far away, my law firm went out of business and I became a full-time working actor. And I was profiled in People magazine, of all things, for ditching my day jobs to pursue my dreams. And I got a call, and it was the head of training at the Department of Justice asking me if I would come in and do an acting for lawyers session. And I really thought about it. And I recall her saying, "Can you help me make my lawyers more interesting?" No, it's not possible. But I really thought about, if you think about it, a great lawyer who's trying to convince a decision maker is somewhat like a fundraiser. They're telling a story using the facts and the law in that case, and themselves to move their audience to their point of view. And that has taken me working with leaders from, I like to say, Cincinnati to Saudi Arabia, Morocco to Milwaukee, and every place in between, because I think leaders like fundraisers, and I see every person as a leader at the core, is really just trying to make an impact and make a difference in how they can really make change happen in their communities and for who they want to serve and lead with who they are. And that's the work that I get to do. So it's really helping people be better actors in the world.
Well, so exciting, Pam. And really to hear you come into this interview fresh off your session and you're absolutely energized and people were full on participating in the chat, to me, just is a great signal of green light and possibility and potential moving forward. As people said, oh my gosh, I don't know if we can do another online or another virtual event, but where in the real world events does every person get a voice? And in this this scenario, everyone has a voice, everyone gets to participate, and they're doing so in the chat. And what a great way just to share, to absolutely share in a moment. So as the person presenting, it sounds like your experience, interactively speaking, with an online event was good.
Well, and I think we all learned that in the last year and a half. I'm very grateful for the technology that allowed me to continue to actually expand my network beyond a way I never imagined. I used to have to get on a plane to go to Saudi Arabia, and then I could traverse and sit in my house and talk to somebody from Saudi Arabia or have a virtual presentation. I think that there are great possibilities in the new world order. And that's really what fundraisers do, don't they? They look for possibilities in the vistas, and you don't have to leave home to do it. And we don't want even our virtual events. I've been energized by so many great events this year, not only that I spoke at, but that I participated in, that had to do with making a difference in my community.
So when you speak from a couple of different hearts, yes. Right? You speak from the, academic heart, the legal heart. You speak from the heart of leadership, but you do also walk the walk and talk the talk with the heart of philanthropy. So I'm holding here something really special. I want to hear this story a little deeper. I have in my hands, I wish the audience could see and not just hear, but I have a beautiful bracelet that I understand has been made with love. Yes. And it has a purpose bigger than itself, bigger than the fashion statement that it would be on my wrist. I want to hear everything, every little detail, because this bracelet is just so special. Everyone in the world needs to own one. Would you please share this story with us,
Well,
Pam?
Really, the story starts many, many years ago when I met a friend from South Africa. We were planning a huge global conference for CEOs, and the theme was possibilities. And this friend had started a company in Cape Town, South Africa called Relate. And it is a nonprofit itself.
And that's relate.org.
ZA, right?
Relate.org.za. Okay, because everybody needs a bracelet.
Correct.
So
or they could go on my site, the Pam Sherman, and get a Suburban Outlaw Edge bracelet. And what she wanted to do was to employ people who wouldn't otherwise be employed in South Africa, senior citizens, and also employ young people and pay them in salary and what they call upskilling so that they could have educational opportunities. They've raised so much money for other charities in making these small bracelets. Their mantra is, we can change the world one beat at a time. So after going to Cape Town and actually going to make the bracelets with the seniors and to tour where they lived, I had a vision that I wanted these bracelets to make a difference in my hometown of Rochester, New York, and an organization, an all-girl charter school that a friend of mine had a vision to start. My feeling is if somebody has a dream, it is our job to help them achieve it. That's really why we're here on this planet. And so each bracelet actually makes a difference for Young Women's College Prep, which a few years ago graduated their very first group of graduates in a city where we've had really low graduation rates. This school had 100% graduate and 99% go to college. I mean, think about that. And each bracelet makes a difference one beat at a time. So I really believe in hands-on philanthropy, in getting involved. And frankly, one of the things I love to do is be an auctioneer because
come on to join the club, Pam. Let's do it. Let's do it.
But I always say I'm not a real auctioneer. I just play one on TV. And the first time I got asked to be an auctioneer, I said, I don't know how to do that. That's terrifying. And I don't know, something happened and I got transformed. And I literally felt like I was taking on a persona. I joke that I became Sasha Fierce and wearing very high heels, which, Ben, I'm certain you don't have to do when you're an auctioneer. And people were more afraid that I was going to fall off my heels and I was going to fail in the auction.
Yes, I wear sneakers, of course, and have for many years. Doctor's orders. I said, "You think it would be more comfortable if I wore these?" And he said, "Yes." Yeah. So, Pam, I got to tell you,
so much fun to do that, right?
Well, it certainly is. And, the very first fundraising I did was for my very own family, because at the time we'd had a diagnosis in the family. We had all these things we need to do, and insurance said we're not paying for any of it. And so we did a friends and family. We put out an email. By the way, this is a tip for all good fundraisers. I sent out a personal email on my work computer at the time to all users in the city in which I work. They said, don't do that again. I did it anyway. And I said, donate 3 things from your home that you don't want, need, or love anymore that someone else might want, need, and love. And let's have a fundraising auction. And it was that very first event in that crowd of people that were all there for our family supporting us. I was absolutely transformed. I knew right then and there, this is what I'd be doing for the rest of my days. And it is a thrill. It is exhilarating to see a room full of committed people, whether it's a room in person or room online, who are absolutely committed to helping others. It is the best.
Yeah. And know every amount is worthy. And, that's why I love the whole concept of one cause where you can, just on your phone, give. It's just so easy.
At any amount, at any rate.
That's right.
$100 is just as good as $1,000.
Well, and being an auctioneer, it really informs my work in leadership communications because, and actually this is the book I am writing right now, which is so many times.
You heard it here first.
Yeah, it could be a while, but maybe by the next one Raise conference. But the idea is that we all have a role that we play, and we think we have to play the vice president of advancement or the CEO of a nonprofit. And we forget that really the most important role we have to play is ourselves. So the title of the book, which I've written, is How to Play Yourself, the Leadership Role of a Lifetime. And we want to bring our best selves and show up with who we are at the core into our leadership. Great actors may take on a role, but the best actors bring who they are into that role. That's why we believe them, right? Well, I believe Tom Hanks in anything he does, right? About it. But he's still Tom Hanks, no matter who he's playing. And for me, that's my goal, is to help every leader show up as the best version of themselves. And when I'm standing on an auction stage, I feel that power of playing the best version of myself, making a difference. It's so energizing. And I bring that into my leadership coaching and consulting because everyone should have that feeling. Even the introverts in the room can imagine themselves showing up as the best version of them. They don't have to do it like me. They have to do it like themselves, right? So
I love that.
Authenticity to the max.
Pam, you are speaking my language right here. You're speaking my language is having that personal integrity when you are the same person on the inside that you are the outside. That is what communicates so much to those in your environment. And in this current state of where we are in the world, right? People are still marching forward. We're still raising money for people who need it. And so one question that so many of our fundraisers have coming into this is, man, what can we do right now to keep the positive vibes going, to keep people energized, to keep them focused on what we need to do next? And so what are you seeing from those great leaders out there who are being successful during this time?
I think they're actually embracing authenticity. They're letting go. Now, it's funny, I do have to make sure there's a balance because I do have some leaders that I have to remind, when the camera's on, it's on. And you have to show up and literally look in the camera and imagine the most ideal audience or those that you want to impact and serve being benefited by your presence. I think that's critically important. So they might do visualization prior to meetings. Bottom line is we're all in each other's homes, right? Through Zoom. It's a great miracle, but that doesn't mean that it's like your mother said, clean up your room. You want to be in that it's like safe. Invite them in as a great host and hostess would to make people feel comfortable, included and seen, but then also that they can feel like they got a warm hug from you for having been there. And I think it is a reminder that Zoom is merely a platform to allow your greatness to be broadcast to more. That's it. So I don't know if that answered your question, Ben.
Well, I think you really, this is a theme that we're hearing from some of the great interviews we've had so far, is you've got to be real and you've got to be honest, and having a sense of transparency, I think builds the trust, builds the connection, and coming from that place of just being a real person, I think that is really helpful now instead of to pretending to be something that you're not.
Yeah, it's funny. I have coached a lot of incredible philanthropists who said, "Oh, I have to speak for 3 minutes at this event," and they always want to come in and not, and they just say words, right? And I stop them without meaning, or they get a script written by somebody else that's handed to them and it doesn't sound like them. And I'm a communications director's, worst nightmare. I'm like, throw away the script right here with Pam Sherman. Throw away the script away. And just find a story that connects you personally to this event, to like, why are you here? How is this connected to your core defining word or your core values or your leadership mission? And it really does transform communications, whether it's a live event or whether you're talking into a camera, imagining everyone dressed up at home, ready to give, right?
We talked about that a lot today, that the channel doesn't matter. In person, Zoom, hybrid, the channel doesn't matter. What matters is being a good leader, being part of something greater than yourself, being authentic, real, vulnerable. You can do that in any channel, Zoom, in
right.
any. It's not the channel. Get over the channel issue.
But come armed with, I always like to say, a foundational understanding of what's important to you, who you are at the core, and then craft that and weave it, sort of wrap it in really important storytelling. Obviously that's a big theme of the conference and a big theme of what are your favorite podcasts? It's, why do we all listen to Serial? Because it's a story, right?
I love it.
Right. My favorite podcasts are the ones where I feel like I'm in the room experiencing a story with someone. For me, moving to a smaller community, I got involved in philanthropy, and I was telling the story of the first time I moved to Rochester, New York. My dad passed away rather suddenly, and he was an OBGYN. And at his funeral, all these women had said, "Thank you to your father, saved me with an early diagnosis of, fill in the blank, right? Ovarian cancer." So people in Rochester asked, "Who can we give to upon your father's passing?" I was brand new in town. I think we'd only been there about a year. And I picked a charity, Gilda's Club of Rochester, because I thought it was for women with ovarian cancer, only to discover that it's for all people living with cancer. It's a wellness and emotional well-being community. And I got a call a few months later, and it was from the executive director saying, "Can I come visit your house?" And I said,
my house?
My house? What do you mean?" She said, well, we have something. And my mother was visiting at the time. And we were still in the throes of my dad's passing. And I said, "Well, my mom's here. I don't have time." She said, no, we need to meet your mother. So she comes with the director of development into my home and meets my mother and said, "We're so happy to meet you. So many people from all over have donated to Gilda's Club of Rochester in honor of my father from Staten Island, New York, that we would like to ask you to be a member of the board, Pam."
And did that happen?
Yeah,
it did happen. I knew you were going to say yes.
Yes, I joined the board and was the chair of the gala that year. I literally didn't know anybody, but it was my way of getting involved in my community. But it was that personal connection. And I hope this story you could feel like my mother sat in my living room and cried tears of joy that people who didn't know my father got to know him through this giving to a charity in a whole nother city. I mean, that's the point. It connects the dots.
Well, and the power of sharing the story and what so many times I'll hear from people, we want to be a part of this continuum of giving, a continuum of improvement. If it's a private school, we want to do our part as a current family with a child here so that the school is better for the next generation. But they don't just see it as themselves giving a gift, but they see it as a part of all the families who have ever walked through the walls. And that story you just shared is exactly why fundraising works. People want to be a part of something great. They want to make a difference in the lives of others, and simply giving them that opportunity is very inspirational.
Well, and I can't help but think of, the neuroscience of storytelling actually proves the point, because when there's a story with hero conflict resolution, people actually want to give more. When there's a story, they're more emotionally connected, and it gets them out of their heads and into their hearts. So to me, I think really what today and these podcasts that you're producing that I think are going to be so useful. I'm so excited to think of somebody like going for a walk and listening to us.
Yes. Me too.
But what's going to be useful, and this is for all fundraisers, is remind yourself not to give an explanation of the work you do. Start with a brief story. Remind yourself to tell a story about you. People want to know about the fundraiser. That executive director was so charismatic. I really wanted to understand her story, what brought her to Gilda's Club. And I followed her. I was willing to do it once she shared her personal story. People always say, it's not about me. It's about the mission. It's okay. People want to follow people. People want to hear your story. What about the mission speaks to you? So take the time to practice and develop your own stories as a fundraiser, your personal stories. It is not, it isn't egotistical. In fact, it's completely selfless. It is about the audience.
Sharing the story.
Yes.
Yeah.
And impacting them.
Then I'm going to put that to the test.
Okay.
And ask you to share another story. I believe you had a volunteer experience not that long ago. Is that right?
Are we talking
the National Woman? Yes. Do you know where I'm going with it?
Yeah. So I recently,
Would you be selfless and share with us?
It's interesting because as a columnist, and I wrote a column for Gannett for 15 years, I hadn't really joined a lot of boards because I wanted to love every charity and nonprofit in my community and beyond and tell their stories. But I decided to actually pony up and joined the induction leadership committee for the National Women's Hall of Fame based in Seneca Falls, New York. The induction this year, we're inducting Mia Hamm, Michelle Obama, Indra Nooyi, Katherine Johnson of the Hidden Figures, Octavia Butler, Joy Harjo, the poet laureate, like amazing, just amazing people. But 20 years ago, when I moved to upstate New York, my husband said, we need to go to this event in this small town, Seneca Falls. I'm like, Seneca Falls? It's where Susan B. Anthony, I know Susan B. Anthony, where women's voting rights started. Yes, I'm coming. Sure. It was a rainy night. We had to get a babysitter. And I sit down in the storefront. It was so tiny. And all it had were these little books that told the stories of all these women of impact. And I could have sat there and read, but I wanted to sit down, and there was a little cocktail table with, my little cubes of cheese. And I sat down next to this tiny woman, and it was Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who was being inducted. Goodness. And I did a double take. And over the years, I've had experiences like that. I got to meet Dr. Bernice King, who was there on behalf of her mother, Coretta Scott King, who was being inducted, or Catherine Switzer, the first woman to run the Boston Marathon. I got to meet her, or Lilly Ledbetter of the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act. It was incredible. Every person introducing my mother to, Nancy Pelosi when she was inducted into the National Women's Hall of Fame. These women are women of impact. Their stories make a difference for the future. And to join the hall at a seminal moment in the middle of a pandemic, as they've just moved into their new permanent home, how could I not? And the thing is, every time I sat down to do a fundraising call, and I'm just a volunteer, right? But I told the story of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and there'd always be this gasp. What? You sat next to her. She was wearing lace gloves, by the way. Fingerless lace gloves.
Perfect.
But
I can picture it.
But I think that for me, and I've been able to, every win I get, every dollar I get, I'm so proud of, because it is through the storytelling. It isn't about, we've got this building in Seneca Falls and we really want to give to the brick. It's about, bringing the stories of these amazing women to life. And I'm really proud of how much money we've raised. And by the way, the induction has been postponed until September 2022 to ensure that there's safety and that we can all gather in Seneca Falls. So we're not done. You're not done.
So does that mean we have to invite you back for another episode of Raise Nation Radio so you can tell us part 2 of the story?
I would love to tell you how much we've raised, because we've really, it's been It's been so much fun to get on the phone and share those stories. And my husband said, "Hey, don't you have a book to write? Don't you have other things to do?" I'm like, no, not when I can actually, make a difference. And every dollar counts, right?
Well, it absolutely does count. It does make a difference. And look, if you've got 12 more months to go, you're just going to be doubling, quadrupling your impact. So keep rolling. Now, I do want to ask a quick question about the storytelling. The storytelling has been, of course, a topic. It's been shared across so many different ways. And I see the power. I know the power of stories. But for someone listening, and maybe they're new to fundraising, or even if they're a veteran fundraiser, they've never told their story before.
Yes.
Do you have just like one or two, just something tangible they can grab to say, okay, I'm going to do this tonight, practice telling my story to communicate with donors?
Well, it's interesting because they always say, well, what's the story I would tell? So I say, often a donor will say, well, so tell me about yourself, right? Which is the scariest question anybody asks, isn't it? Because you want to just take people on a data dump of, well, first I was born here. I love doing an exercise that I do where it's like, tell your life story in 60 seconds. No one can do it. It's just, even the young people can't do it, right? But first, remember that what is a story? I think this is really important, Ben. A story is a narrative that feels real to the teller and the listener. The story I just told about the National Women's Hall of Fame. It was a rainy night. I got a babysitter. My husband didn't know what the significance of Seneca Falls. I sat down with my plate of cheese next to a diminutive woman wearing lace gloves. It's got to have that kind of sensory detail. And then actually stating the emotion out loud. So sensory detail, emotion. And then I'd like to say it should have a beginning, a middle, and an end, right? It's just brief. A 30-second story can actually change how people see you. So if you want to start, I say, write your stories down. Put them in a journal somewhere and start collecting them. Because, the gala will come and will say, hey, we've got to do this, right? Write these stories, and everyone will have forgotten them. So I hope that helps. One is remember that a story is a narrative. Remember to make it brief, provide detail and emotion. And then on the next thing, ensure that you gather your stories. So those would be my 3 takeaways. I hope that's helpful. And
please, if you're listening right now, if you're driving, pull over. If you're walking, stop. Make a note of this. Write it down. Write it down. Write it down. Because whether you're doing an online event or an in-person event, whenever you're telling a story, any story, follow those examples, beginning, middle, and end. Like we have all been to a gala before where someone gets up and says, well, it all started in middle school. And then 45 minutes later, we're running for the door, wishing someone had pulled the fire alarm. So follow that.
The emotion, the sensory, and the animation are also so important to your beginning, middle, and end.
How you tell the story. Can I just also say, coach your donors who are going to get up on that stage. Don't be afraid to tell them.
Here's the mic.
Or be afraid. Well, we can't tell, Joe, because he's given us all this money. So he can have the mic for as long as he wants.
Yeah.
No, you're not doing Joe a service, right. And you're not doing your audience service.
Absolutely.
I call it, we have to be intentional, specific, and brief.
Intentional, specific, brief, animated, sensory, emotion, beginning, middle, and end. They're the 9 tips.
There you go.
There you go. Just follow that formula. It's kind of like someone said, well, how long should the video be? And the answer usually is the same, which is as short as possible, but long as necessary to communicate the story. As short as possible, but as long as necessary. But of course, keep it under 3 minutes. So, but look, I tell you what, the time is absolutely flying by. I can't believe that the time is here. But I got to say, Pam, for every person that tunes in, we like to say to our special guest, they're tuning in. They may be anywhere on this continuum throughout the pandemic. So we like to give them one actionable piece of advice, one bit of advice that has worked for you or has worked for others that you can share that they can put into practice today to help them with their fundraising. So we'd like for you to give that to our lilisteners right now.
Oh, wow, that's so reductive.
We can put her on the spot.
Stump the guest. Pay attention to your own energy. I think self-care is critically important. We spend a lot of time talking about how we meet our audiences, but you're the messenger matters. The messenger matters. And if you're going to be the messenger for your cause, for your organization, for your mission, you have to care for yourself. So don't forget that, you aren't you in a vacuum. You are you for your audience. But I think what happens with fundraisers is often they pay so much attention to their audience and their needs that they really don't do and practice the self-care that for themselves.
That is beautiful advice. And, we've heard it more than once today. And so I think if you're listening, go ahead, give yourself that permission. Give yourself the permission to take care of yourself, because if you take care of yourself, you are in a much better state, of course, with more energy, more creativity, productivity to move forward. But it all starts with you. And we love our fundraisers out there. So we all want you to be super strong moving forward. So great advice, Pam. Thank you for that. And I can't believe I'm saying this. I hate to even do it. We need to dial in the part 2 or part 3 here, because we could easily crank out.
You need to get to the fear part.
Well, I think Dawn said at the beginning, these are all fearless fundraisers. So I think we've covered that, right? Just by signing up.
They're already fearless.
Already fierce and fearless. That's for sure.
With my new, I don't know if you saw my new Fierce, FEARCE. FEARCE. Scared and you do, scared and you don't. You're going to be scared, so do it anyway.
Oh, there you go. We're getting a lot of tidbits out of this podcast.
It's absolutely the case. It's absolutely the case, right? You just need to do it. Remember, mission first. Those that you're serving are counting on us all to do our very best here, and we will do it together. We obviously, goes without saying, we're better together. We're stronger together. And I'm talking about this great community of fundraisers, and that's you, fearless fundraisers. And sadly, that is about all the time we've got right now, even though we want to continue, but we want to thank you for tuning in. We hope that you enjoyed today's Raise Nation Radio topic and your daily dose. Well, you've had a big dose of fundraising inspiration here today. I want to thank our sponsors, One Cause, for making this episode possible. One Cause is, of course, driving the future of fundraising with very easy to use software solutions to help donors and nonprofits connect. Be sure to check them out at onecause.com. And on behalf of my co-host, I like to say the legendary, because she is Dawn Lego, and our amazing. Look, by the way, I need one more chance here. Shout out to you, Pam. Let our listeners know how they can connect with you and find you out there online to learn more about how you're serving.
www.thepamsherman.com.
Not to be confused with other Pam.
There are other Pam Shermans. One of them's a fitness instructor. That's not me.
Let's get to the right one. The Pam Sherman.
And you can connect with me on social media at thepamsherman.com, on Instagram, LinkedIn. You can follow me, and I'm constantly putting out advice from the edge.
And I love her website, right? What is it?
It's www.thepamsherman.com.
Perfect.
I love it. Well, mark it down, bookmark it, save it, connect and learn. Thank you so much, fundraisers, for joining us. Until next time, on behalf of Pam and Dawn, I am Ben Farrell. Thank you for joining us at Raise Nation Radio, and stay fearless out there, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
One Cause is the proud sponsor of Raise Nation Radio and your daily dose of fundraising inspiration. One Cause is driving the future of fundraising with easy-to-use software solutions that help nonprofits connect with donors. Day in and day out, One Cause puts your cause at the center of everything they do. Let One Cause power your fundraising.